Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Bremont Supermarine Full Ceramic Polar White. This watch is available from Bremont.com for €7,750. The watch is limited to 150 pieces. Bremont are a well-established British brand. They were founded in 2002 and their watches are made in Henley-on-Thames in England. So firstly, let's look at the case that the watch comes in and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in this chocolate brown suede leather case. On the lid we have the Bremont emblem and Bremont logo in gilt, which complements the metal gilt zip, the metal hardware on the zip pull, which is also gilt, and good attention to detail because on the suede leather tag for the zip pull we have the Bremont emblem in gilt, so very aesthetically pleasing. I'll show you the interior. Contrasting interior because it is beige and suede effect to it. It's velour fabric. We have a strap which has a stainless steel popper which is also plated in gilt. This houses one watch, and also beneath this panel we have a second cutout, so this could potentially hold two pieces. This panel on one side has credit card size slots. The quality of the stitching is excellent, no loose stitches. Nice to see these compartments for credit cards, and on the reverse there's also a pocket. Again, flawless stitching around the perimeter. Very good quality presentation. Immediately one gets the impression that the Supermarine Full Ceramic Polar White is a high quality piece. Now, normally I'd be critical of the absence of the two items, owner's instruction manual and warranty card, but however, I'm not going to be critical. So why is that? Well, this is a review sample, therefore they're absent, but of course, if you purchase the piece from Bremont.com, it will come with an owner's instruction manual and warranty card, as one would expect. On a positive note, what I like about it is this Supermarine Full Ceramic Polar White is covered by a 5-year international warranty. At this price point, €7,750, one would expect a 2-year international warranty, which of course is the industry standard at this price point. 5 years of international warranty is generally seen on high-tier pieces at the €10,000+ price point, such as Rolex, etc. To get it at €7,750 is exceptional. Bremont really deserve credit for that because it does add value to the piece. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 43mm case diameter, we have a 50mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 13mm and a lug width of 20mm. The nylon fabric woven strap is NATO style and it's Velcro rather than having a buckle and tang, alternatively NATO keepers. And it is straight and parallel, it doesn't taper, 20mm at the lugs, also 20mm at the titanium keeper. Now, titanium keeper is solid titanium, which is black PVD coated, beautiful luster to it, engraved with high definition engraving. I'm pleased to see it signed versus being sterile and unsigned, and it has the Bremont text logo in high definition engraving. No sharp edges to the top edge or the low edge of the flanks. The corners have been deburred very well, and I like the proportions of it. It does give the NATO style Velcro strap a military issued or alternatively tool watch aesthetic. Quality of the black PVD coating to the top side, underside and flanks is absolutely flawless, and it's good to see it made from titanium, which matches the titanium bezel, titanium crown and titanium caseback, which are also black PVD coated to match the solid ceramic case. So with regards to the rest of the specification, we have a double dome sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver applied indices and the silver mirror polished syringe handset. The syringe handset is correctly proportioned, and one can immediately differentiate between the syringe hour hand and the larger syringe minute hand, and I like the way the tip of the syringe minute hand extends all the way to the white minute ticks on the contrasting black chaptering. What I like about it here is the attention to detail with regards to design continuity, because we've got orange accents to add some interest. Rather than being monochrome, for example, all white or all black, we have some orange accents. For example, the Arabic numerals on the chapter ring at 15, London, 45 and 60 are in orange, and that complements Supermarine on the dial, and the Supermarine model contrasts very well with the polar white dial. Again, what I like about it is the textured 3D effect of the polar white dial. For example, they could have just used a glossy enamel flat white dial, alternatively a sunray dial, alternatively just a matte dial which is smooth, but this has a nice textured finish, and the polar white dial looks like snow and it does add interest to the dial. The black chapter ring has high definition Arabic numerals, and also the minute ticks are crisp, they're sharp, they're not too thick, they're not blurry. Quality of the printing on the dial is high tier level. It's not mid tier level between 500 and 5,000 euro. Make no mistake, this is the quality of dial execution one would expect to see on a Rolex, Tudor or Omega piece. Quality of the Bremont emblem and Bremont text logo is sharp, it's crisp, the font is clearly legible, very aesthetically pleasing. The black contrasts very well with the polar white dial. Also like Supermarine in orange, and then we've got the water resistance rating, 1,640 feet, which is 500 metres, and then automatic. What I like about the dial is it's not over-branded with unnecessary text or specification, because the 3 lines of text at 6 perfectly balance the emblem and the Bremont logo at 12. So the dial doesn't look too busy, doesn't look too cluttered, legibility is good, readability is good, functionality is good. Also like the detail of London in orange text, it adds interest to the chaptering, and it really is a very easy to read dial. Now just bear with me, I'm going to move the syringe minute hand out of the way of the date complication, and then you'll be able to see the date window better. White date wheel with contrasting black Arabic numerals. What I like about it is, the dial, although it's textured, the polar white dial has a 3D effect, it's not too thick. Often with textured dials like this, the problem is the dial is too thick, and therefore the date wheel is sunk too deep beneath the textured dial, and it creates a permanent shadow on the date window. This doesn't have that problem. The white date wheel doesn't have a shadow around it, and the black Arabic numerals are high definition. The font is crisp, it's sharp, it's not too thick, it's not blurry, and with the absence of a Cyclops magnifier, you can still easily read the date. Both the single and the double Arabic numerals align correctly. They're not too far to the left or the right of the date window, and they're not too high or too low. Excellent. So with regards to the rest of the specification, the double dome sapphire crystal is low profile, and I want to give due credit to Bremont here because they have made the correct decision. Yes, a flat sapphire crystal would have reduced the thickness of this piece, but this is surprisingly thin for a 500 metre water resistance piece. So just think about this for a moment. We're not looking at a 200 metre or 300 metre dive piece, which is 13 millimetres thick. This is 500 metres, but it's still only 13 millimetres thick, even though it has a double dome sapphire crystal, which of course adds some thickness to the piece. They could have reduced it slightly with a flat sapphire crystal, but it's not necessary because it's 13 even with a double dome sapphire crystal. However, they deserve credit because they've resisted the temptation of making a mistake and using a box top hat crystal. Often brands, when they create a dive piece, they use a box top hat crystal to give the piece a vintage aesthetic, because visually it looks similar to a acrylic, Hesalite or plexiglass domed crystal as per pieces that were made in the 1960s and 1970s, which predated the use of mineral crystal, K1 hardened glass, and of course sapphire crystal, which is now the industry standard. But this doesn't have that vintage aesthetic, it looks contemporary, and I like the low dome of the double dome sapphire crystal. In terms of the dome profile, it reminds me of an Omega Planet Ocean, or alternatively an Omega Seamaster. That's the kind of dome. Low profile but not flat, but very aesthetically pleasing. I like the benefits of it being double domed versus single domed, which would have been flat on the underside, because one doesn't get the characteristic distortion and magnification effect with a flat underside to a single dome crystal. Double dome is correct. So the bezel, which is gear tooth profile to it and also has flats on it which are embossed, is made from titanium, which is black PVD coated to an excellent standard. Ceramic bezel insert is a relief bezel insert, and of course it's hard and scratch resistant. I like the matte tone of it rather than being a glossy ceramic bezel insert. Also like the details of the embossed raised sections at the 12 o'clock, 6, 9 and 3. Adds interest to it. So let's test the bezel execution. 120 click unidirectional titanium bezel, as one would expect. Now, nice loud audible clicks. However, it doesn't sound as solid and heavy or as dense as 316L or 904L stainless steel, but that's a given. It's just a characteristic of titanium. It feels less dense than stainless steel. That's to be expected, but therefore the click sounds more tinny. Now, subjectively, one could be critical of that if you like the solid, dense sound of a solid stainless steel bezel versus titanium, which sounds more hollow, but this does not sound too tinny. I actually like the sound of it. There's good engagement. You can feel and hear the click spring engaging with 120 grooves machined into the underside of the solid titanium bezel. Doesn't feel rough or gritty. Sounds good. Feels smooth. Doesn't feel too stiff. Doesn't feel too light. In terms of resistance, it feels lighter than a Steinhardt Ocean 139, which is very stiff. Feels similar in resistance to a Seiko 5KX, which you may be familiar with. Feels heavier than, for example, an Omega Seamaster or alternatively a Rolex Submariner Date. I think they've got the balance correct because it doesn't feel too light, doesn't feel too heavy. What I like about it is feels even all the way through the 360 degrees of rotation, so it doesn't get tighter or looser, which is good. No lateral side-to-side play whatsoever, no back play whatsoever. So despite having medium resistance rather than heavy or stiff, it actually feels very well balanced, and I like the lack of play. It's very refined. So finally, let's check the alignment. One more click. Perfect. The Lume Pip perfectly aligns with the 12 o'clock index on the dial and the 60 Arabic numerals in orange on the chapter ring. This is an example to other brands at this price point, €7,750, of how to get bezel execution perfected. No lateral side-to-side play, no back play, medium resistance, feels even all the way through the 360 degrees of rotation, and the alignment is bang on the centre, bang on the 12 o'clock index, bang on the 60 on the chapter ring. They could not refine this further. If I had to choose one word to describe it, it would be refinement. It's stellar. Let's test the screw down crown execution. So knurled crown made from solid titanium, and again it's black PVD coated to perfection. On the tips of the knurled teeth, there's a large chamfer that deletes the sharp tips of the teeth. It's grippy and tactile, correctly proportioned because it's partially recessed into the crown guards on the right-hand flank, which is good. Very good attention to detail because high definition engraving of the Bremont emblem into the titanium, and the quality of the black PVD coating is absolutely outstanding. Let's test the execution. Silky smooth. This is sublime screw down crown execution. Minimal number of turns required to unscrew it. Perfect interface between the internal thread of the titanium crown and the external thread of the titanium crown tube. 500 meters of hermetic seal is strong specification. To remind you, we're not looking at a 200 or 300 meter water resistance piece. This is 500 meters, and on the left hand flank we have a helium escape valve, and of course that is mandatory when we're looking at 500 meter pieces used for saturation diving. For example, one sees a helium escape valve on the Rolex Deep Sea, Rolex Sea Dweller, Tudor Pelagos, Omega Planetocean, and of course the Omega Seamaster Professional that uses a screw down helium escape valve at 10 o'clock. But this style of recessed internal helium escape valve is seen on the Rolex Deep Sea, Sea Dweller, and of course the Omega not the Omega Planetocean, that also has a 10 o'clock screw down crown as per the Seamaster. But I like it. It's recessed into the titanium case. So 500 meters on the crown. When it's unscrewed, we're now in the manual wind position, and one can manually wind the Bremont caliber BB14AH, and it's based upon the Lejeune Perret caliber G100 automatic. You'll be familiar with the caliber G100 because I have reviewed that movement previously, and you'll know from that review it's one of my personal favourite movements. It's an outstanding, accurate movement with a high power reserve of 56 hours. So, excellent choice by Bremont to base their caliber BB14AH automatic on the Lejeune Perret caliber G100 because it is a reliable, well-proven workhorse Swiss caliber with excellent chronometer accuracy and excellent high power reserve. Feels very smooth to manually wind. To put the movement into perspective, it feels smoother to manually wind than a Sellita caliber SW200-1, a Soprod caliber P024, or alternatively an ETA 2824-2. It feels smoother, feels more pleasant. There's no discernible difference when you're manually winding a Lejeune Perret caliber G100 and this Bremont caliber BB14AH. They feel exactly the same. Silky smooth. Feels very pleasant. You can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up to its maximum 56 hour power reserve. Pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication. So if you look at the date window at 3, you can see the date clicks over with a nice positive click. In terms of the sensation, it feels lighter than an SW200-1, and I like it. It feels refined and it feels smooth. It's got a nice loud audible click, but the feeling of it feels lighter than an SW200-1. One can feel the refinement, and that's something I really like about the Lejeune Perret caliber G100. It's a very well made movement. So quick set complication works well. As I've detailed, the single and the double Arabic numerals have a nice fine font. They're not too thick and blurry. Even though it's a textured dial, it's not too deep. The date wheel runs close to it, and it doesn't have a shadow. So the alignment is correct, but also the legibility is excellent. You can read both the single and the double Arabic numerals clearly. Excellent. And they've made the correct choice by using a white date wheel with black Arabic numerals versus a black date wheel with white Arabic numerals, which would of course clash with the textured polar white dial. Putting it out to the second click position hacks the movement, and if you look at the arrowhead tip to the second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead, so therefore it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the Bremont caliber BB14AH automatic. So we're now in the time setting position. Now again, what I like about it is the smoothness. One can feel the meshing of the gearing is precise. There isn't a lot of backplay when you rotate the knurled titanium crown clockwise and anti-clockwise as you cycle through the 12 hours to set the time. It doesn't feel stiff. It has less resistance than the Miyota 9015 or 9039, less resistance than the Sellita caliber SW200-1, a P024 or an ETA 2824-2. Very smooth. Light resistance to the gearing, one can feel the refinements. Minimal backplay. When you rotate the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, you don't have to take up a lot of slack. To put the backplay into perspective, it has less backplay than an SW200-1, and that's something I really like about the Lejeune Perret caliber G100, which this is based upon. It's very refined. Excellent build quality, quality control, materials and finishing. Feels very smooth. Feels pleasant to manually wind. Hacking works well. Quick set date works well. Setting the time feels precise. Pushing the crown back in restarts the movement. What I like about it is it runs at 4 Hz, and you'll know this from my previous reviews. It's more aesthetically pleasing because the 4 Hz sweep, running at 28,800 vibrations per hour, is a nice smooth sweep versus running at 3 Hz, which has a stutter or judder because it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour respectively. So that's something I like about the BB14AH, which is based upon the G100. It has that nice smooth 4 Hz sweep. It just is more aesthetically pleasing. Let's test screwing the crown back down. Instant thread pickup, perfect interface between the internal thread of the titanium crown and the external thread of the titanium crown tube. 500 meters is strong specification, but this is as silky smooth as the triplock crown on my Rolex Submariner date Starbucks. That is the level of refinement. It is sublime. Bremont deserve credit. They could not improve upon this crown. It is silky smooth. Perfect pickup, the threads mate, and they pick up instantly. For example, you don't have to rotate the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise over and over again repeatedly to get the threads to mate, to pick up. First time, every time, the internal thread of the titanium crown picks up instantly with the external thread of the titanium crown tube. It is fantastic. Sublime screw-down crown execution. Right, so let's look at the case in detail. Case is made from titanium powder, and the titanium powder is heated up to the incredibly high melting point of 1450 degrees Celsius, and then it's sintered and moulded into the case shape. So this is a monoblock titanium case made from solid ceramic powder. So after it's been moulded into the case shape, a monoblock case, the ceramic is then sandblasted to a perfectly smooth finish. Now, looking at the flanks, if you look at the flank, it actually visually looks like a titanium case which has been brushed satin finished and then black PVD coated. It does have that beautiful luster to it. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. So if you look at the helium escape valve recessed on the left hand flank, you can see it's flush, it doesn't project externally. But what I like about it is, it appears to be visually like a titanium case which is brushed satin finished and into a beautiful luster, but it's actually not. It's made from ceramic powder, which is sintered, and then they sandblast it, but it has this absolutely smooth finish to it. Beautiful luster, even though it's ceramic versus being made from titanium or stainless steel. Nice large bevels which run the full length of the case, and they mark the transition between the top of the lugs and the flanks to the case. The top of the lugs also has a beautiful satin finish, rather like brushed satin finishing. So visually this does look like a stainless steel case made from 316L or 904L stainless steel. And alternatively it looks like a titanium case made from grade 5 titanium which has then been black PVD coated. It's very impressive to see this quality of ceramic powder being sintered at 1450 degrees Celsius and then sandblasted to this absolutely flawless finish, because one has to appreciate ceramic is of course a hard scratch resistant material. That's the benefit, but the negative is it's very hard to work with because it's prone to being cracking with stress fractures when you machine it, when you grind it, when you polish it, when you sandblast it. It's a brittle material. It's more difficult to work with than 316L or 904L stainless steel. It's more difficult to work with than grade 5 titanium, for example. So Bremont deserve full credit because Using ceramic powder and sintering it at the very high temperature of 1450 degrees Celsius and then sandblasting is a very production intensive process, and of course it adds significant production costs per piece, which diminishes their profit margin per piece, but nonetheless they've done a stellar job of it. Now, undercuts to the flank of the case have been deburred with a large bevel. That deburrs the sharp edge to the underside of the ceramic case, and it is very smooth. This enhances comfort level and feel good factor. Tips of the lugs have curved profiles rather than being beveled, and again this deletes the sharp corners to the tips of the lug, so it's incredibly comfortable to wear on this fabric woven nylon velcro strap. Now, on the crown guard side, the crown guards are finished to perfection. Nice profiling. I like the way the titanium crown is partially recessed. The crown guards aren't too large and too bulky. They have nice curvature to them. Undercuts to the flanks, again, large bevel. And the underside, or undercuts to the crown guards, also have large bevels. So this is very well finished. No sharp edges to this case whatsoever. It is very well finished. Caseback is titanium and black PVD coated. And I'll show you that after the wrist shots, because the two spring bars, although this is NATO style, the strap doesn't slide underneath the spring bars as per a NATO or Zulu strap. It's actually stitched into the spring bar, so we've got stitching either side, and therefore the spring bars can't move out of position on the NATO style woven fabric strap. So what I'm going to do after the wrist shot is I'll remove one of the spring bars, and then I'll show you the case back, because of course as it stands I can't move the centre section that goes beneath the case back, because of course the spring bars are fixed with stitching. But I want to show you the detail of the case back because it is exceptional. So just bear with me. I'm going to remove my Concord 40, and then I'll give you a wrist shot of the piece on the woven fabric nylon velcro strap. Plenty of adjustment on the strap, so this will fit from a 6-inch wrist size up to an 8-inch wrist size with no difficulty whatsoever. So just bear with me. I'm going to engage it in the titanium keeper. Now, as you can see, even on my large 8-inch wrist, no difficulty whatsoever. Plenty of length on the strap. So to clarify, this would actually fit up to an 8.5-inch wrist size, or alternatively, even with a wetsuit, you could use this for seawater diving or saturation diving around a wetsuit, because even on a large 8-inch wrist, there is half an inch of extension on it. So excellent. Easy to adjust. Velcro is very grippy. Closes and opens freely, but it feels very good. I like it. Also, I like the proportions of the keeper, which is titanium. It's large, but no sharp edges, no burrs to the corners, doesn't scratch the wrist when it moves up and down the wrist, doesn't pull arm hairs. It's very smooth, and of course titanium is lighter than using a stainless steel keeper. Correct choice. So this will easily fit from a 6-inch wrist size up to an 8.5-inch wrist size. What I like about this piece is, yes, it does have wrist presence. Of course, that's a given because it's a large piece at 43mm by 50 lug to lug. But it's surprisingly comfortable. It doesn't feel like a top-heavy piece. So to put this into perspective, two things I like about this piece. Number one, it's only 84 grams. This lacks heft. The benefit of this piece having a titanium bezel, titanium case back, and also the movement holder is not made from stainless steel. It's also made from titanium. All of those things, those three core components, titanium bezel, titanium movement holder, titanium case back, they reduce the heft of the piece. Of course, the other reason why it lacks heft is because the case is made from ceramic powder, which is sintered, versus being made from 316L or 904L stainless steel, which of course would be very heavy. So to clarify, if this piece were made from stainless steel bezel, stainless steel case, stainless steel case back, this would be in excess of 100 to 120 grams. And of course, on this fabric woven nylon NATO style strap, it would feel very top heavy. It would feel like a thick slab of 316L or 904L stainless steel. Ceramic actually feels very similar to stainless steel, but because it has a titanium bezel versus stainless steel, because it has a titanium case back versus stainless steel, because it has a titanium movement holder versus stainless steel, those three components reduce the heft of the piece down to only 84 grams, even though it's a large piece at 43. Now, if this were 39 or 40mm, of course, 84 grams would not impress me. That's nothing unusual. If this were a 39 or a 40 and it were 84 grams in stainless steel, I would say that's nothing unusual. But for a 43, it is exceptionally lacking in heft. Comfort level and feel good factor are therefore enhanced. However, Due to the wrist presence, it does dominate the wrist. And I would say, if you have a smaller 6 to 7 inch wrist, you can rule this piece out. Not because of the thickness or the long lug to lug. The reason is the wrist presence. Clearly at 43mm, this is intended for collectors with a larger 7 to 8 inch plus wrist size. However, if you have a 7 to 8 inch plus wrist size, you will really appreciate the lack of heft. It's low profile because it's only 13mm thick. But above all else, it doesn't feel top heavy. It feels incredibly well balanced. Now, what I like about it is they've made the correct decision of a 22mm lug width. Had they made the lug width 20, of course, this woven fabric nylon NATO style strap would have been too thin. A 20mm strap on this 43 head of the piece would look far too slender. 22 distributes the weight, looks good, aesthetically pleasing, but on this side of it you can see it looks wide enough because it doesn't taper. It's 22 and 22. Plenty of adjustment on it, and I like the keeper, which is titanium and black PVD coated, is very low profile. It's suitable for 6 to 7 inch wrists. It's also suitable for 7 to 8, but the head of the piece really is best suited to a 7 to 8 inch plus. Now, the second thing I like above all else is this is very low profile for a 500 meter water resistant piece. Now again, if this were a 200 or 300 meter water resistant piece at 13mm, I would say that's nothing special. It would not impress me. But one has to remind yourself, this is 500 meters water resistant. Now compare this to the thickness of a Tudor Pelagos, for example, which is far too thick. Compare this to the thickness of an Amiga Planet Ocean, which is far too thick. You could even say the Amiga Seamaster Professional is far too thick, and that's not 500 meters. But this is the point. This is incredible. 500 meters with a double dome sapphire crystal, and yet it is still only 13mm. With an automatic. Now, if this were 13mm and it were quartz powered, or if it were a mechanical manual wind movement piece, at 13 I would say that's nothing special. But 500 meters with a double dome sapphire crystal adding thickness, and it's still only 13mm. This is stellar. Helium escape valve is recessed, and this is better. It's something I dislike about the Amiga Planet Ocean and also the Amiga Seamaster Professional, because we have this screw down helium escape valve at 10 o'clock, which sticks out from the left-hand flank. Now, of course, subjectively, some collectors would argue that's a key element of the Planet Ocean. It's a key design element of the Seamaster Professional. And purist Amiga collectors will like that. But, however, in terms of aesthetics, the left-hand flank being smooth and the helium escape valve being recessed, as per the Rolex Sea Dweller, Rolex Deep Sea and Tudor Pelagos, is better looking in my opinion. So, I really like that they've recessed the helium escape valve into the left-hand flank, versus having an external screw down helium escape valve at the 10 o'clock position, as per the Amiga Planet Ocean and Seamaster Professional respectively. So visually it looks very aesthetically pleasing. I like the curvature and the taper of the lugs, slender case, and the crown guards are nice and curved. They're not too thick, they're not too bulky, they're not block-like, as per Rolex Super Case, for example. And I think they've done a really good job of the proportions. Now, subjectively, I'm going to be critical of the 50 lug to lug. Now, the reason why I say that is, you'll know this from my previous reviews, 48mm is the sweet spot for lug to lug, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. 48 fits all wrist sizes. It's the industry standard for all wrist size, all cases, regardless of whether it's a 39, 40, 41 or even a 43. I think this piece could be further enhanced if they shorten the lug to lug from 50 down to 48. But however, one has to be mindful, this is a large diameter piece at 43. Rather like the Rolex Deep Sea, Rolex Sea Dweller or Tudor Pelagos, it does have wrist presence, or alternatively the Amiga Planet Ocean. It's a credible saturation dive piece, and of course it is intended to be used for seawater diving, saturation diving and being worn around a wetsuit. So therefore, yes, it does need to be large. 43mm does give it a military issued or alternatively tool watch aesthetic. One could argue if this were 39 or 40, it would look too small for a 500 meter piece. I like it, and of course on my 8 inch wrist you can see it fits it to perfection. I would prefer 48, but 50 is acceptable, but I would say if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist you may find 50 gives too much overhang on the tips of the lugs. Comfort level and feel good factor are 10 out of 10. 84 grams is excellent, 13mm thick is excellent. This is really a sublime feel good factor and sublime comfort level piece. Double dome sapphire crystal is excellent. When you view the piece straight on, the AR coating is fantastic. Perfect clarity to the dial, the hands, the date complication, and I really like the textured finish of the polar white dial. It does add interest to the piece. So fantastic legibility, and I like the dial layout, clearly legible. The orange accents add some interest to it. Also, the relief ceramic bezel insert is visually aesthetically pleasing with a 15-minute ticks in the first quarter, but also like its relief bezel rather than just being a glossy ceramic bezel insert. The relief bezel, rather like a Rolex Yachtmaster, which is actually made from platinum, I like the style of it, and it really does look very good, like a high-tier piece. So excellent. Now, I will do a lume test, and then what I'll do after that is I will remove the spring bar to remove the NATO style strap, because then I'll show you the titanium case back, which is black PVD coated. Just bear with me, I'm going to put back on my Concord 40 and then I'll continue. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute maximum. So this uses BGW9 on the lume pip, on the ceramic bezel insert, the applied indices and also the handset. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. We're clearly looking at 5 to 6 layers on the lume pip, on the ceramic bezel insert, the applied indices, and also the syringe handset. Good even application, and what I like is there's a perfect colour tone match in daylight because it's white lume pip, white applied indices, white hands. They don't look more white or cream in all three places. In the dark, we've got the same perfect colour tone match of the blue BGW9 Super Nova. Potency of the exciter is stellar on the lume pip, stellar on the indices, stellar on the handset. The syringe handset is correctly proportioned because one can immediately differentiate between the shorter, wider syringe hour hand and the longer, slender syringe minute hand. So they've got the proportions correct. I like the fully loomed tip to the arrowhead second hand, and you can see potency of the exciter is good. Good longevity, exponentially with time. It doesn't fade quickly. So I'm just going to charge it up once again. Now, just bear with me. Just look at that colour tone match. 5 to 6 on the lume pip, 5 to 6 on the indices, 5 to 6 on the hands. Perfectly blue colour tone match. For example, often mid-tier brands between €500 and €5,000 and high-tier brands between €5,000 and €10,000, there will be a slight colour mismatch. For example, 3 to 4 layers on the dial, 5 to 6 on the hands, and the lume pip won't have the full 5 to 6. What we're looking at here is even colour tone because we have 5 to 6 on the lume pip, 5 to 6 on the indices, 5 to 6 on the hands. They've got the colour tone match perfect in daylight. Colour tone match is perfect in the dark. BGW9 Super Nova is fantastic. In terms of performance, there's no discernible difference between this and chromolites used on the Rolex Submariner date. Alternatively, the blue BGW9 used on the Tudor Pelagos. It's the same quality level. It's stellar, and I'm pleased to see that Bremont haven't cut any corners in order to reduce production costs per piece and therefore maximise profit margin per piece. For example, using 3 to 4 layers on the dial and 5 to 6 on the hands. This is a full 5 to 6 on the indices, the hands and the lume pip. Now, being very critical, subjectively I would like to see the lume pip enlarged to a larger diameter lume pip because that would improve the performance of the lume pip on the ceramic bezel insert, but this is subjective. I appreciate for the majority of collectors the proportion of the lume pip is adequate and satisfactory, but I just like to see a larger lume pip as per, for example, on the Tudor Pelagos, alternatively the Rolex Submariner date. But stellar performance, exponentially with time, the potency of the exciter still has good potency. Fantastic. Right, so now I'm going to remove one of the spring bars because usually with a NATO or Zulu strap, of course, it goes beneath the spring bars and therefore you can pull the strap out from beneath it. But on this one, either side of the spring bar, which is stainless steel, they have stitched it. So the benefit is it's not going to move out of position, but just bear with me. I'm going to remove one of the stainless steel spring bars, and it's just tricky to do on camera, but there we are. Taking it out because quality of the finishing, I'm just going to rotate it so it's the correct way up. You can see the quality of the finishing to this titanium caseback is stellar. It's engraved with Supermarine, and we've got the globe, and of course around the circumference we have Bremont Ceramic, Titanium, London, and then in gilt we have the reference number of the piece and of course 50 ATM, which denotes 500 metres. The milled slots are deburred and chamfered, so no sharp edges to the milled slots. What I like about it is the engraving is high definition of the globe and also Supermarine, but it's not rough. It doesn't feel scratchy. Often with high definition engraved casebacks, they're not as smooth and comfortable as, for example, a forged caseback, which is hydraulically pressed. So to clarify, the case is made from ceramic powder, which is sintered, but the caseback is not made from ceramic. It's made from titanium, which is then black PVD coated to this matte finish. Absolutely stellar black PVD coating. This is some of the best black PVD coating I have ever seen on titanium. It's absolutely flawless. Benefits of this caseback is it's very low profile, and again, I want to give due credit to Bremont here because they have selected the correct calibre to base their Bremont calibre BB14AH automatic upon. It's based upon, as I've detailed, the Luminosity G100, which is a thin calibre, despite having a high power reserve of 56 hours. But, for example, had they powered this by the Sellita SW200-1, the Soprod P024, or the ETA 2824-2, for example, they are thicker calibres. And, of course, they need more clearance between the underside of the screw down caseback and of course the rotor, and that means you need to have a bubble back caseback, especially when it's 500 meters. The caseback needs to be thicker than 200 and 300 meters respectively. So one has to appreciate this is a 500 meter water resistant screw down caseback made from titanium, but look how thin it is. Very low profile. This is very flat. Now the benefit of this is it reduces the thickness of this piece down to only 13 millimeters. Even though it has a double dome sapphire crystal versus a flat sapphire crystal, it's only 13. And as I've detailed, if this were 200 meters or 300 meters and 13 thick, that would not impress me. But with 500 meters, compare this to the thickness of a Amiga Planetocean, compare it to the thickness of a Tudor Pelagos, which are 500 meter pieces. This is far thinner at 13. And this is the benefit of using the Luminosity calibre G100 as the base of the Bremont calibre BB14AH. But caseback is stellar. Finishing to the underside of the ceramic case is fantastic. As I've detailed, we've got bevels on the undercuts to the flanks. That deletes the sharp edge. That enhances comfort level and feel good factor. Curvature to the tips of the lugs is good rather than flat bevels. No sharp corners. No sharp edges. The case finishing to this ceramic case is high tier level. Make no mistake, we're not looking at 500 to 5,000 euro mid tier level finishing to a ceramic case. This is high tier case finishing. This is 10,000 plus euro finishing, but it's not a 10,000 plus price point piece. It's 7,750. This is some of the best ceramic case finishing I have ever seen. To put this into perspective, it's a level above the Tudor black base ceramic, which I previously reviewed. That was a very well finished case, but this case is a level above it in terms of refinement. The finishing to the transitions, the curvature, the undercuts to the flanks is a level above. Absolutely gorgeous case back, smooth, doesn't feel rough, excellent. So finally, let's discuss the movement use because it is my favourite aspect of the piece. So as I've detailed, this is powered by the Bremont calibre BB14AH automatic, which is based upon the Luminosity calibre G100. Has 25 joules, it runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which are used for complications and they work correctly. Also has a quick set date complication, which as I've demonstrated also works correctly. 56-hour power reserve is excellent. Now put that into perspective. The industry standard for automatics, such as the SW200-1, is 40 hours. 56 is 16 hours additional power reserve, which is excellent if you wear this piece in rotation as part of a collection. Stated accuracy is -4 to +6 seconds per day. So I want to give due credit to Bremont here because this is regulated in 5 positions to chronometer accuracy of -4 to +6. This one is running consistently at +2 seconds per day. +2 is well within the chronometer limits of -4 to +6. It is stellar accuracy. So I like everything about it. Are there any negatives to the Bremont calibre BB14AH automatic? None whatsoever. As I've shown you, sublime screw down crown execution, but quick set date complication feels good. Hacking works well, setting the time works well, feels refined, feels very smooth to manually wind, smoother than a Sellita calibre SW200-1. It is a excellent, reliable, well-proven Swiss calibre. Excellent choice to base the Bremont calibre BB14AH upon. I like everything about it, and at this price point, it is the correct choice. Now, are there any negatives to this piece? None whatsoever. I think Bremont deserve full credit. This is the perfect dive piece, and it is a credible saturation diver, alternatively seawater diving watch, because we do have a helium escape valve. And to see a ceramic case with titanium bezel, titanium caseback, titanium crown and helium escape valve, 500 metres water resistance, at this price point, it is absolutely loaded with specification. I think they've actually undervalued this piece because in terms of specification, build quality, quality control, materials, finishing, this is a €10,000+ level piece. But it's not €10,000 high tier level in terms of price point. It is €7,750. So I think they've undervalued it. The movement is correct. Now, subjectively, if I had to be critical, and I am being very critical here, the one thing I'd like to see added to this piece, which I think would enhance it, is COSC chronometer certification. Now, it's a given. This piece is made in Henley-on-Thames in England, and therefore the quality control, build quality, calibration of the movements regulated in 5 positions to chronometer level. It does have a very high quality control level because it's made in Henley-on-Thames in England. But the one thing that's missing from this piece, which would enhance it at €7,750, is COSC chronometer certification. If it had that, alternatively METAS certification as per the Omega Planetocean and Omega Seamaster, for example, this really would be unquestionably excellent quality and unquestionably excellent value. As it stands, with the absence of COSC chronometer certification, I'm still going to declare it excellent quality and excellent value at €7,750 because it is loaded with specification. No negatives to it whatsoever. I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money, and I'm going to highly recommend it to you for your consideration. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Bremont Supermarine full ceramic polar white. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.